In this lesson, we're going to be reviewing area and perimeter. First, let's take a look at perimeter. Remember, perimeter is going to be the sum of the sides that measure around a 2D shape. So no matter what shape you have, if you add together all of the sides, you get the perimeter. So when we take a look at number 1, we have a square. Now remember, with a square, all of your sides are equal. So since one side is 9 feet, they're all going to be 9 feet. So there's two ways that we can find the perimeter. The first way is we can add 9 plus 9 plus 9 plus 9. So there's 4 9s, which equals 36. Or we can say 9 times 4, since it's the same thing 4 times, equals 36. So the area of this square is 36 feet. Now when we take a look at the rectangle on number 2, we want to make sure we label all of our sides, because perimeter is adding together all of your sides. So I have to add 4 numbers. So we'll add the 2 numbers that are there already, 16.8 and 7.3. But then you also have 16.8 on the top and 7.3 on the left. So when we add these, we're going to be adding 16.8 plus 16.8, since we have 2 of those, plus 7.3 plus 7.3. Or a shorter way we could write it is 2 times 16.8. So instead of writing 16.8 plus 16.8, plus 2 times 7.3. Either way, we get a perimeter of 48.2 meters. Make sure you include that unit of measure. Go ahead and highlight numbers 3 through 6. And don't forget, for every shape, you have to add all of the sides, not just the sides that are labeled. Now let's review area. So area can be found a few different ways depending on the shape. So remember, area is the amount of space occupied by a 2D shape. So there's a couple ways we can find area. First is the area of a square. The area of a square can be found by multiplying the length times the width. So for number 7, we can multiply, since it's a square, it's 5 meters by 5 meters. So to find the area, we can multiply 5 times 5. And we find that the area equals 25 meters squared. So with area, when you put your unit of measure, not only does it have the meters, but the squared. That tells us we're talking about area. Notice how with perimeter, it did not have that. Go ahead and highlight number 8. And number 9 is a rectangle. So with a rectangle, we can find the area the same way, multiplying your length times your width. So to find the area of this rectangle, we would multiply 13 times 4. And 13 times 4, putting it into a calculator, is 52. And it's feet squared. So again, since we're talking about area, we have to put the squared on our unit of measure. Go ahead and highlight number 10. The area of a parallelogram for numbers 11 through 14 are very similar to the area of a rectangle. We just use a different terminology. So the area of a parallelogram is our base times our height. So instead of length and width, we use base and height. And we do that because a parallelogram is leaning. So we want to make sure we're using the height that goes straight up and down, not the side that's leaning. So when you find the area, you don't want to use this side like we did with our rectangle. You want to make sure that you're using this height and this base. So then when we find the area, we're going to multiply 9 times 5.3. And then we can put that into our calculator. 9 times 5.3 is 47.7 kilometers squared. So again, making sure we're putting that squared on our unit of measure. Go ahead and highlight number 12 on this page. And then on the next page, you're going to highlight number 13 and 14, still talking about a parallelogram. And then let's look at finding the area of a triangle. So the area of a triangle has its own formula. It's 1/2 times your base times your height. So it's just like finding the area of a square or rectangle, except for you have to remember to cut it in half. So for the area of the triangle number 15, our base is 14 and our height is 17. Remember, your height needs to always go up and down. So the area would equal 1/2 times 14 times 17. And you can put this all in your calculator at once and it will tell you that the area is 119 feet squared. So again, we're still talking about area, so on our unit of measure in our final answer, we want to put this squared. Number 16. Number 16, we have 3 units of measure that are labeled, but we only need our base and our height. So your base is 10.5 and your height is 10. So those are the only 2 we're going to be using. So our area is going to be 1/2 times 10.5 times 10. Then when we put that in our calculator, we find that the area equals 52.5 inches squared. Go ahead and highlight number 17 and 18. And be careful that you're using your base and your height. Well, you'll have extra numbers on both of those, but you want to use your base and your height when finding the area of the triangle. The last one we want to look at is the area of a trapezoid. It also has its own special formula. The area of a trapezoid is similar to putting together the area of a triangle and the area of a square. So the area of a trapezoid is going to be 1/2 times your height, but a trapezoid has 2 bases. So instead of just multiplying it by a base, we're going to add together both bases. So when you find the area of a trapezoid, make sure you're finding the sum of those bases first and then you're multiplying. So you want to make sure with this one you're following order of operations. Looking at number 19, we have a trapezoid, so our area is going to equal 1/2 times our height. So remember, your height always goes straight up and down. So our height is going to be 7. 1/2 times 7 times our 2 bases are 13.7 and 5.5. So your 2 bases should always be 2 parallel lines. So you're never going to be using that slanted line. You're going to be using your 2 parallel lines. And we're going to add those together, 5.5 plus 13.7. And then according to order of operations, we need to do that addition first. So that would be 1/2 times 7 times, and then in our calculators we can type 5.5 times 13.7, and that's 19.2. And then we can multiply all 3. So 1/2 times 7 times 19.2. And we get 67.2 meters squared. So we're still talking about area, so we want to use that unit squared. Go ahead and highlight number 20 and 21, and let's take a look at number 22. So number 22, we have a trapezoid. When we look at this trapezoid, it might not be the easiest to identify your bases and your height. So your bases, remember, are your two parallel lines. So these are going to be your bases. And then your height is that straight line that connects those two bases, 20.5. So the area of this trapezoid is going to be 1/2 times 20.5 times 7.2 plus 24.8. And then again, making sure you're doing that addition first. So that's 1/2 times 20.5 times, in your calculator, you're going to add 7.2 plus 24.8. And you get 32. So 1/2 times 20.5 times 32. And that equals 328 inches squared. Now let's take a look at some applications, some word problems. And we're going to go back to perimeter and look at some perimeter word problems. Miss Mank is decorating a 4-foot by 9-foot bulletin board for her classroom. If she decides to put a purple border around the entire board, what is the length of the border that she needs? So when you're doing area and perimeter problems, you need to start by drawing a picture. So she has a bulletin board, and we know it's a rectangle because it tells me it's 9 feet by 4 feet. And she wants to put a border around that bulletin board, and she wants to know how much she needs. So perimeter talks about the space around it. So that's how we know it's a perimeter problem. And we're going to be adding 9 plus 4, plus we have another 9 and another 4. With perimeter, remember, however many sides you have, that's how many numbers you should be adding together. So that would be 2 times 9 plus 2 times 4, which would be 18 plus 8, which equals 26 feet. So remember, when we're talking about perimeter, we just have our unit of measure. Go ahead and highlight numbers 2, 3, and 4. Number 3 already has a picture drawn for you, but make sure for number 2 and number 4 that you draw a picture to go along with your problem as well. Number 5, we're going to be talking about area word problems. So for number 5, we already have a picture drawn, and it asks us how much fabric is needed to create the sail. So we need to know how much fabric for the whole sail, so the area that's going to be covering it. That's how we know it's an area problem. And the sail is the shape of a triangle, so we need the area of a triangle formula. 1/2 base times height. So that'd be 1/2 times my base of 9 times my height of 14. And then putting into my calculator, 1/2 times 9 times 14, I get 63 feet squared. Because again, we're doing area, so it should be our unit squared. Go ahead and highlight numbers 6, 7, and 8. And remember, for 6 and 7, make sure you're drawing a picture. Number 8 already has a picture for you. Make sure you're reading and interpreting the problem and what type of picture you need. Be careful with number 7. Number 7 is going to be a 2-part problem. Once you find the area, then you need to use the area to answer the question. And on your next page, if you'll go ahead and highlight number 9 through 16. So these aren't going to specifically tell you if they're a perimeter or area problem. You'll just have to read and interpret what it's asking for. If it doesn't give you a picture, make sure you draw a picture to go along with the problem. And make sure you're answering the question being asked. Sometimes you find the perimeter and area and then apply it to answer the question. So just be careful when you're reading the question.